Today's lesson covers example 3 within the unit 8.4 area of composite figures, and it is area of trapezoids. Trapezoids with an S. And there's one formula for area of a trapezoid. It's kind of long. Make sure you write it down because it's hard to memorize. It's 1/2 times the height times the sum of the two bases. So we write it as base 1 plus base 2. So I'm going to go like this. This is the height. That's what H stands for. And B1 and B2 are the bases. And so you end up multiplying here, so 1/2 times the height, and you end up multiplying here. And what's tricky is that you have to add your bases first, because you have to follow order of operations, and anything that's in parentheses has to be performed first. So make sure you make yourself a note that says add the bases first. Okay. Another fact is that your height, that your height is always, struggling today, here we go. Your height is always between the two bases. All right, so make sure you have all this good information down. I think I can probably fit one problem on here. Let's do that. That way we have our formula and all of our notes. And so one example of how a triangle might look, it might look like this. You might have two right angles. Try to draw this with me. So I've got a right angle here and a right angle here. Believe it or not, this is a trapezoid. Back when we started geometry, remember the definition of a trapezoid is a quadrilateral, so four-sided figure, that has one set of parallel sides. So the top and bottom here, those are parallel. Let's say this is 5 feet, and on the bottom we have 9 feet. And then up and down we have 6 feet. So I'm going to write our formula again. I think I'm going to try to color code it too. So we've got 1/2, I'm going to make the height blue, times the height, times the sum of the bases. I'll make the bases red. Okay, so again, your height, this is starred over here, is always between the two bases. So that means that 6 feet has to be the height. So right now I've got A equals 1/2. You're going to plug in 6 for the height. And then your bases, that means that 5 and 9 have to be your bases. So I'm going to write down 5 plus 9. It does not matter which one you write first. You could write 9 plus 5 if you want. You'll get the same answer. But your next step that you absolutely have to do, I'll use green, is perform what's in parentheses. So you need to do 9 plus 5, which is 14. So now you have 1/2 times 6 times 14. Remember, if there's anything in parentheses and no sign, it becomes multiplication. And now it doesn't matter which order you perform this in. I'm going to do 1/2 of 6 first. I'm going to go from left to right. So 1/2 times 6, that's the same thing as 6 divided by 2. 1/2 of 6 is 3. And then finally, my last step is 3 times 14, which is 42. Again, since we're working with area, our units would be feet squared. But remember, if you're using GoFormative, which you are today for your assignment, you don't need to put in the units because it won't accept it as an answer because it's technology. So just put in the number 42 if this were a problem on your assignment. Let me do a couple more because I know this concept is a little bit confusing. I'm going to clear my screen. This can be example B. And try to draw a trapezoid that looks like this. Kind of. This is supposed to be a right angle, and this is supposed to be a right angle. This is 8 millimeters. We've got 5 millimeters across the bottom and 4 millimeters here. So the first thing I'm going to do again is write down my formula. maybe, here we go. A equals 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases. Again, height, I'll make it red, needs to be between the bases. So your height is actually 5 this time because your bases are parallel. I'm going to make the blue your bases. Okay, it's kind of tricky. This one's on its side. Again, height has to be between the two bases. So now I'm going to plug in these numbers. Got 1/2, the height is 5. Doesn't matter which base you write first. You could write 8 plus 4 or 4 plus 8. And then the next step that you absolutely have to do next is what's in parentheses, 8 plus 4. 8 plus 4 is 12, so I have 1/2 times 5 times 12. And I can do this in any order now because it's all multiplication. Just so that I can try to do mental math, I'm going to do 1/2 of 12. I know 1/2 of 12 is 6, so then my last step would be 6 times 5, which is 30. So your final answer would be 30 millimeters, or 30 square millimeters. All right, let me do one last one for you. If you think you've got it, you could probably pause your video and try the assignment, but if you get stuck, definitely come back. Here's example C. I'm going to make a trapezoid that looks like this time. This is 7.7 inches. This is 2.3 inches, and then there's like a dotted line that goes through this. That's going to indicate the height. Your height is 6 inches. Remember, the height has to be between the two bases. Here's your formula. 1/2 the height times B1 plus B2. So 1/2 the height, again, is 6. I'm just going to use all black this time. And then your bases are 7.7 and 2.3. Doesn't matter which order you write them in. But you absolutely have to add those two numbers first. So 2.3 plus 7.7, I've got 10. So right now I have 1/2 times 6 times 10. I'll go from left to right this time. So 1/2 of 6 is 3, and 3 times 10 is 30. All right, so you've got a couple of problems on Go Formative to try. Make sure that you are checking to see if you have the green dot before you move on, because that means if your answer is correct. If you've got a red dot, it means you need to try it again. Don't hesitate to reach out if you guys have any questions.